to order, and I'm going to call on David Zook to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So, don't sit down.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let the roll call show that present tonight are Ms. Ildy Laskoper, Ms. Jeannie Castine, Matt Jewett, and also all members of Cabinet. Charlotte Boyle and Jim Bogner. It's been a fun day. I would like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting and remind the audience of the request to address board cards that are at the back that must be completed and submitted to the board secretary, Ms. Hilda Juarez, if they wish to speak to an agenda item. Board policy provides for 2 cards, white cards to be submitted in order to speak to an agenda item, and blue cards to be submitted in order to speak at public comments at the beginning. Policy also states there is a 5-minute maximum time limit per speaker, and due to the open meeting law of the state of Arizona, board members are not allowed to address items that are not on the agenda. If you do not want to address the board, but you do wish to give your comments in writing, you can do so on a goldenrod sheet, and all members will receive a copy. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move the governing board approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is approved. There are no meeting minutes at this time to approve, and I have no public comment items, so we will move into the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for your participation at our meeting this evening. For the superintendent's report, I'd like to report on 2 things. First, we are in our 2nd week of summer break, but not everyone is relaxing. We have a group of teachers and administrators who are now working in our curriculum cabinet, developing Common Core curriculum and assessment, and will continue to work diligently for the rest of this week and probably far into the summer. We appreciate the work of our teacher leaders and also of our administrators. We most recently, in fact this is dated June 4th, received information from the Association of School Business Officials International that we had received an award. So this was addressed to Mr. Walmer, and what it says is, congratulations. On behalf of the Association of School Business Officials International, which is also known as ASBO, I am pleased to inform you that Creighton Elementary School District Number 14 has received ASBO's Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting Award for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2012. This award represents a significant achievement and reflects your commitment to the highest standards of school system financial reporting. The Certificate of Excellence Review Panel has provided attached comments regarding the report, and they indicate it's important to keep those comments as we prepare our fiscal year end 2013 comprehensive annual financial report. So I also, along with ASBO, would like to say congratulations to our finance department and to our director of finance, Mr. Scott Walmer, and members of his staff who always work hard to make sure that we're compliant with policies and statutes, and who work very hard to earn the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting Award. So, Mr. Walmer, thank you. I turn that back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Boyle. We move, let the record reflect that Ms. Annette Sexton Ruiz has joined us at this time. And we now move on to the approval of the consent agenda items. I have a motion?
I move the governing board approve consent items A through K in accordance with policy BEDB-R.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. We will move on now to education services and the approval of pay for performance plan.
While this is getting set up, I would just like to share that Arizona Revised Statute 15977 requires that school districts submit their performance-based compensation system plans to the Arizona Department of Education by December 31st of each year. And the plan is, before it is submitted, needs the approval of our governing board. And so this evening, Dr. Spiller is presenting the Pay for Performance Plan 2013-14 Pay for Performance. Dr. Spiller.
Hello, my name is Lynn Spiller. I'm Director of Research and Evaluation, and I historically come to the governing board to present pay for performance in the fall. But this year, we were not able to complete the pay for performance criteria in the fall. We didn't have enough teacher representation, so we moved another committee meeting into the spring this year, and I'm going to present to you the findings of the committee. So what we hope we can do this evening is that the governing board can approve the 2013-14 pay for performance criteria for the coming school year. So just to review, pay for performance started in 2001 with Proposition 301, and that money goes into specific line items that can only be used for teacher compensation. 60% goes to base pay, and 40% goes to this criteria that we're going to talk about today. So the recommendation for the school year 2014-15 is the first time that the state has said that we are going to tie money to teacher performances. So what the guidelines we have received is of that 40% of the money that is in the classroom site fund from Proposition 301, that 33% of that 40% must be a teacher performance. So based on that, we developed this pie chart to just show that 60% of the money is already in base pay, that the 40% that's left over, 33% of it has to come directly from teacher performances. So last October, we were unable to develop a criteria due to teachers were very busy and didn't have time to participate in the committee. So the committee recommended that we meet in following the Ames test. So we took the components that the committee developed in October, we turned it into a survey and sent it out to the staff. We had 100 responses with a lot of feedback. So we took the feedback, developed new components to the pay for performance criteria, and met again with teacher groups on May 21st and 22nd. We developed the final criteria and we sent it back out to the teachers for additional feedback and approval rating. And that's what we're going to talk about this evening. So we now have, the committee now recommends these 6 components. Some are brand new components, some are old, what I call continuing components. So the first one is individual teacher component. It received an 88% support from the teachers who responded to the last survey. Teacher attendance component is 84% support. Teacher participation on committees is a 75% support. And then our 3 professional development components, which is implement exemplary instructional strategies, positive behavior interventions, and English language learner strategies all received above 85% support. So in your board documents, you have received a handout that looks like this. And this handout has 5 different areas. It talks about what, we can get you copies of
It is on board docs.
Okay.
Right.
It talks about what percentage of the fund for each of the criteria. It talks about what the goal is, what the measure will be, what evidence will be required to meet this goal, and then what percentage of the allocation will be used to pay out to the teachers. So goal 1.1 is what we call the individual teacher performance. It received a high percentage from the teachers. And this one is, and what I'm displaying on the PowerPoint right now is the report from SharePoint. It's exceedingly small. It's like a placeholder for you. This report is developed for each teacher each year on SharePoint. And what it does is use classroom assessment data, classroom observation data, and cite aggregate data to determine what effectiveness group they fall into. So this report will be used next year to determine whether they receive 100% as highly effective teacher, 90% for effective, 70% for developing, or 0% for ineffective. And the second goal is about staff attendance. This received a high percent response, and teachers will be paid out if they are absent less than 5 days, 5 or less days each year. The third criteria is what we call teacher participation in committee work. If they work greater than 15 hours within an approved activity, they will receive 100% of that payout.
Can I ask if that, does that include like sponsorship of clubs and sports and things like that as well?
What we'll be doing is leaving that up to the principals. If they're paid for any after-school activities, then they can't double dip.
Okay.
So that's why it's sort of, we had to throw in that approved word. Okay. 1.4 is cycle evaluated by superintendent or designee for implementation of exemplary instructional strategies to accelerate student learning. And in parentheses, I put CT4S because on this case, we're using the rubric for that instructional strategy. And that one received a high approval rate from the teachers. 1.5 is looking at, again, implementing the positive behavior implementation plans that all the sites are working on at this time, and that had a high rating. And then lastly, it is increased student achievement through implementing English language learner strategies in all classrooms. So, I just provided you the handout so you can see what it looks like. What we do is we incorporate this criteria within a Creighton School District pay for performance plan. That's uploaded to the state when they request it. And this plan, if you approve it, will be used for the next school year. So,
Lynn, can I ask a couple questions? What's your response rate? So you had 100 teachers in the first batch and 60, so I switched to the document, sorry. So in terms of the population of teachers that received the survey, what's your response rate?
So what we looked at was one of the variables on the survey is what's your assignment. So we always make sure that there's a balance before we accept the survey results between are they classroom teachers or are they out of the classroom teachers, and then or special areas. And then the second thing we look at is do we have a representation from all schools. So the first survey had, about 25% response rate, and the second survey was much less. Well, not much less, but 61 of the teachers.
And then just to remind me, because it's been a little while since I've had to do facial performance, is there still an expectation that based on the survey results, that 75% of the teachers responding have to approve the
70%.
changes? So it's 70, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I noticed that all of your components met at least that threshold, but I wasn't sure if it was.
I know, it's always exciting to open up the survey and see the results. So, yeah, they were, the lowest one was teacher participation, which is the one I didn't expect to be so low. I thought that would be one that they would like a lot. So,
In terms of, you said there were lots of feedback and comments. Could you sort of describe or summarize
I meant
what
to
that-
bring them, well, they were positive and negative, so lots of times, like teacher attendance, which is one I was surprised at the percent of support, and they actually said, oh, thank you for including this, but then there were quite a few who felt that it might be discriminate against teachers who had young children or extended families. So another one with teacher effectiveness was, a positive was, I really am excited that I'll be paid out on my efforts. That was a positive comment, and a negative comment would be, this is based on my classroom observation data, and I feel sometimes that's subjective. So those are the kind of comments that we saw.
And I will say that I ran that report earlier, so I could make copies and put it in your folders.
That would be great to see. I'm just curious if, I noticed that obviously on the individual teacher component, which is, I appreciate that it's a significant portion of the pay for performance, if that's what the teacher has control over, is their actual classroom practice.
So those first three
Those
are
first
actually
three are
them.
very-
It's their teacher effectiveness, their participation, and their
Yeah,
attendance.
so I appreciate those pieces. I think that that's fabulous. Any concern, or was any concern raised that in terms of teacher attendance, maybe it's the point of the comment around potentially, teachers who have young children or what other life circumstances, that it's an all or nothing, you either make it or you don't?
To tell you the truth, most of the, there were two topics we talked about most. One was teacher participation in committees, and the other one was attendance. And we actually had a couple of where it was 100% for 5 days, and it broke down. And we could never come to consensus because pay for performance is always on consensus. It's not a democrat. We don't vote and get a majority. Everybody just has to agree. And what was interesting was we talked about how many days do most people usually have to take each year because of being sick or the flu or whatever. And what the committee said was it's about 5 days. So that's why we agreed on 5 days.
And what was the complaint that teachers had over needing to be on a committee or having so many hours of committee time?
Well, we talked about it, you mean in the committee when we talked about it? We first used the career ladder criteria, which was 50 hours, and that's where people go, oh, that might be a lot. And so we just kept talking until we talked about what are some committees that you're on and how long do they usually run? And the committee decided they thought 15 hours was an achievable amount of hours to require teachers to participate. Our classified staff receives a pay for performance. It's based on M&O funds. And it's much less than what teachers receive, but just as important and can be a source of a great morale booster. They always get it right before Christmas. So what we've always done is just took the average of each site and then multiplied it by what was possible for the classified employee. And so what we'll be using is the site section of the principal evaluation, because that's our accountability. So it's Arizona Learns, it's our Azella AMAOs, it's our professional development, like our T4S, positive behavior, and it also has parent surveys. So that criteria will be what's used for the classified employees. So that concludes my presentation, and so my recommendation is that you approve this criteria for the coming school year. Any other questions?
Questions or concerns? Dr. Spiller?
Yes.
Lynn, do you have a sense of, have you run some potential
Impact
impact
data?
data in terms of how it's gonna shake out for teachers based on the recommendations?
It wasn't remarkably different than our previous criterias. And for some teachers, there will be more than the previous criteria because it's within their control. So, yes, I'd run impact data for each of the criteria. The only one I didn't really run is attendance. I do have to say I didn't run attendance.
Are there other questions or a motion
Comments?
or comments?
Well, I move the governing board approve the pay for performance criteria for the 2013-14 school year.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. If there is no further discussion, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is approved. Thank you, Dr. Spiller, and everyone who worked on the pay for performance committee. 8A is pupil expulsion approval. Is there any further discussion, or obviously without giving any personal information away? Otherwise, we can accept a motion. Nobody ever wants to do motions.
I move the governing board approve to expel the reference student.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, it is approved. Business and plans, 10A.